Hey, welcome to part 3 of the CPCU 555 video series. Today we are breaking down all the endorsements, coverages, and the exam format. So this is a pretty important video. And this is presented by AssociatePI. We are an independent organization, not affiliated with the institutes or the CPCU. I'm Jake. I've passed my 555 exam, so I'm going to help you pass yours. And this is a long video, so we're going to get straight into it and try and get through it as quick as possible. As I mentioned, this is video number 3. If you want to check out our other videos, you can go to AssociatePI.com/videos. So let's start by breaking down the exam format. First of all, it's an 85 question multiple choice exam. It's broken into 2 parts, Part A and Part B. Part A is all concept questions. They're based on some type of definition, usually straightforward concepts. Part B is going to be case questions, so they're going to be based on some type of real-life scenario. For the 555 exam, it'll put you in the shoes of an insurance professional. You have to recommend the best coverage or endorsement for a personal insurance customer. So now the question format. A couple common question formats for the 555. You can see them here. One really common one is a question format that says, which of the following is true in regards to blank? And you have to answer it based on this concept. Another common format is blank is an example of what? Another common question format is all the following are true, except you have to pick the one that's not true out of the 4 multiple choice answer options. And lastly, probably the hardest type of question is a case B scenario type question, where it will ask you to recommend something. So it'll put you in a real life scenario. It'll give you a scenario and you have to recommend the best coverage or endorsement for a customer. So here's a couple examples of these 4 formats put in real exam questions. So you can see example 1, as I mentioned, which of the following is true in regards to the DP3 form? There's an example of a common concept question. Example number 2, ABC insurance firm offers a premium discount for homeowners that install burglar alarms. This is an example of what? Social objective. So this is one of those, this is an example of blank type questions. Example 3, all the following are true in regards to umbrella insurance coverage except. So you had to review the answer options and choose which of the following is not true about umbrella insurance. And lastly, as I mentioned, the most difficult type of question, example 4, is a scenario-based question. So it's a real-life scenario. So this one says, Macy's son, Brett, owns 2 dirt bikes and an ATV. These vehicles are currently not insured. Macy would like to insure these vehicles under her personal auto policy. What should you recommend to Macy? So you can see how difficult that is. You have to put yourself in the shoes of an insurance professional, kind of like an agent, and you have to recommend the best endorsement or coverage given this scenario. So that's a breakdown of the exam question formats. Now let's get into the meat of this presentation, which is going over the most important endorsements and coverages. So I've kind of beat this to death over this 4-part video series, but the endorsements are incredibly important on this exam. There's over 80 of them you have to be familiar with. Not all of them are incredibly important, but you have to at least be familiar with them, memorize most of them. So in today's presentation, I'm going to show you some of the most important ones that you must memorize because they will probably be on your exam. And let's get into that. So here are the 5 most important endorsements. I highly recommend you memorize these 5. I'm going to go into them in more detail in subsequent slides, but just to get an overview, this is what we're going to be looking at. So memorize these because you'll probably see a couple of these on your exam. So if you memorize them from this video, that means you'll probably get a couple correct answers on your exam, which is a good start. So I'm not going to fully read everything just because it's a lot of definition. So I recommend you either pause the video, jot it down, or you can download these slides at AssociatePI.com/slides, where we have all of these presentations available for download. But this first one of the most important endorsements on the exam is the business pursuits endorsement. So with all these endorsements, you have to know, 1, what is this endorsement? What personal insurance product can you use this endorsement on? In this case, this is attached to the homeowner's insurance policy. And you have to know what is not covered by this endorsement, because if you see this in a real life scenario, you have to know when you would use this endorsement and when would you not. So memorize this endorsement. The next important endorsement is the excess electronic equipment coverage endorsement. So this one's tough because there's a lot that goes into it. There's some minor details. So once again, know what this covers, what type of excess electronic equipment is covered, what is the purpose of this endorsement, so increase the limit, and what type of electronic equipment is covered. And you definitely have to memorize this one. Know that it's attached to the auto insurance product and when you would apply this endorsement. The miscellaneous vehicles endorsement. This is actually maybe the most important endorsement that you have to know for this exam. So know what is covered by this endorsement. Know that it attaches to the auto policy. Know what is not covered by this endorsement, because this exam will try to trick you. There's a lot of minor details for the miscellaneous vehicles endorsement. It's one that you'll probably see in a scenario-based question. It'll ask you something about maybe coverage for an off-road vehicle, an ATV, or a motorhome. And it'll ask you what's the best coverage. Say the insured wants a liability coverage. You might have to recommend that they need to attach the miscellaneous vehicles endorsement to their auto policy for appropriate coverage. So that's a sample of a case question that you might see on your exam. The own snowmobile endorsement, another important one that you should memorize. This is kind of similar to the miscellaneous vehicles endorsement, where the homeowner's insurance policy, auto own policy, some of the insurance products already provide limited coverage for snowmobiles. I think only when it's used on the residence. So the own snowmobile endorsement provides excess coverage, coverage that's not provided already by the homeowner's insurance policy. So you have to know that difference when you are considering this in a case question, because it might ask, Joe has an HO3 policy. He only uses his snowmobile on the insured premises. What's the best coverage? In that case, the homeowner's insurance policy already covers Joe's liability if he's using it on the insured premises. But if he uses it away from the premises, then you would recommend the own snowmobile endorsement. So there's an example of knowing what this endorsement covers, when to use it, when not to use it. And again, know that this is a homeowner's insurance policy endorsement, not auto. That can be confusing. You think it's snowmobiles like a vehicle, probably an auto endorsement, but you got to know this is actually homeowners. And also know the personal injury coverage endorsement. This is another important one. Know what it covers. Know that it attaches to the homeowner's policy. You got to know what personal injury is, first of all. So know the personal injury definition, and then know what type of personal injury is covered for this endorsement, and who would use this endorsement and who would not. So that wraps up the 5 endorsements that we recommend you memorize. So go out. That's only 5 of 80. So go memorize those ones, because that's probably a couple of correct answers right away on your exam. Now, the next most important topic is the coverages. Remember, there are 11 different types of personal insurance products on this exam, including homeowners insurance, auto insurance, watercraft insurance, umbrella, inland marine, also called the floater policy. So a lot of different type of products that you have to memorize. Each has its own unique coverages, exclusions, and conditions. So for example, the homeowner's policy has coverages A, B, C, D, E, and F. Got to know all those coverages, what to cover, who's covered by it, what are the exclusions under each coverage, and what are the conditions to each coverage. So there's a lot to memorize. So we're going to go over some of the most important coverages. So these are the 5 that we're going to cover. Remember, there's a ton of them. So these are just the 5 that we recommend you memorize right off the bat, because they're very important. So we're going to go over auto insurance part A and part B. We're going to go over homeowners insurance coverage A and coverage E, and umbrella insurance. So let's get into the 5 coverages that we recommend you memorize. So part A, the personal auto policy. Again, a lot to read here. It's the definition of part A. And it's not the full definition. This is just the intro definition. There's a lot more that goes into part A of the auto policy. I'm not going to read all of it. You can read it here yourself, but highly recommend you memorize it. And I'll just go through what you should know from part A. But important things that you want to know is first, what is covered by part A. So it's liability insurance for an automobile. Know who is covered by it. So named insured, family members, etc. Know who's covered by part A. Know the conditions, and know what is excluded, and also know the limit of coverage A under the auto policy. So know what limit is included, and know how to select which limit for the insured should be covered under Part A. Also know Part B of the auto policy. You have to know all parts of the auto policy, but these are two of the most important you have to know. And this covers personal injury and medical payments incurred by the insured. So that's an important one. This exam is going to try and trick you and confuse Part A and Part B, because one of them covers the insured's medical payments and injuries. One of them covers the third-party injuries, which is Part A covers the third-party injuries of the insured. So if they injure somebody else, that's covered under Part A. If they injure themselves, if the insured injures themselves, that's covered under Part B. So it's tricky. That's an example of how you have to know the distinction between the different coverages and when one coverage applies and when one does not. So again, know what's covered by this, know what parties are covered. So, the insured, family members in the car, somebody else driving the insured vehicle. Also know what is excluded, the conditions, and the limit of Part B. So very important, know Part B of the auto policy. Coverage A of the homeowner's policy, definitely got to know that one. So coverage A covers the dwelling and structure, so the primary home. Know what this covers, what it doesn't cover, know what's excluded, know what parties are insured, know what property is insured. There's a lot that you have to know for coverage A. So it covers the physical exterior, physical interior, attachments, and supplies. And then also know what the limit for coverage A is. Coverage E. Under coverage E, the insurer agrees to cover and pay for the liability of the insured. So essentially, if the insured owns a home and gets sued because somebody is injured on the property, that's covered under coverage E. Again, another important coverage. The homeowner's policy is broken up into property coverages and liability and medical payments coverages, so know the differences there. That's Section 1 versus Section 2. Section 2 includes coverage E, coverage F. Have to know that difference. So for coverage E, you got to know who's insured. So it covers it pays for the injuries of other people, third parties, not injuries incurred by the insured, which is an important distinction. Know what's excluded, know what the conditions are, and know what the limit is for coverage E of the homeowner's policy. Again, important coverage. Got to know this one. Umbrella insurance. This is a whole topic in itself, so we're not going to go into too much detail on it. But umbrella insurance is excess liability coverage on top of an underlying policy. So you could have an auto policy with $300,000 liability limit. You could purchase an umbrella insurance policy to purchase an extra $2 million of liability coverage. So know what an umbrella insurance policy is. Know the conditions. So there's certain conditions about an umbrella policy, like you have to have an underlying coverage, such as an auto liability limit. You have to meet and maintain a certain limit of liability on the underlying coverage. There's certain conditions about when umbrella applies. Sometimes umbrella insurance coverage does not apply. Sometimes it drops down and provides coverage when the underlying policy does not cover a loss. So there's a lot to know for umbrella. Again, we can't put it all in this slide because there's just too much. So know what the umbrella policy is. Understand the drop-down coverage. That's very important. Know who is insured, what's excluded, and the conditions. Very important that you know umbrella insurance coverage. And that wraps it up. That was a ton of content to cover, and that was just scratching the surface. There's a lot more that you have to know for each of those coverage and each of those products. I highly recommend you go and download our endorsement and coverage guide over at AssociatePI.com/practice exam. So we will give you a list of every endorsement that you need to memorize and every coverage that you need to memorize. And within that study guide, it ensures that you take notes on those very important topics that we just covered today, but we give you all 80 and all, 11 personal insurance products, all the coverage you need to know. With it, we also give you a free practice exam and study guide, so go download that at AssociatePI.com/practice exam. Make sure you got all the stuff memorized before you take the exam. And if you need more resources, head over to AssociatePI.com/CPCU555. You can check out our other blogs, such as the difficulty and exam questions that you will see on the 555. And that wraps up video number 3 of the 555 video series. You can see all 4 videos of the 4-part 555 video series at AssociatePI.com/videos. And that's it. We'll see you in the next video.